Lilo and Stitch was one of my movies that I used to outplay as a kid growing up. Now, Disney has dropped a live-action version of the classic. The big question is, though, did they do it justice or mess up another one of my childhood favorites? Let's get started with my review of the live-action Lilo and Stitch. Let's go.
From the town I like nothing, when I'm hopefuls lit. A small city or some, but mostly no one forgets. On the outskirts of where I've been, dreaming since a kid. Thought I was cursed to never see a radio hit. A Grammy to industry or something, even close. Miles outside.
What's going on, all my beautiful people? This is Jacey, and I just got back from watching the live-action version of Lilo and Stitch. Before I do start my review, please note this will be a spoiler-free review, just in case you haven't seen it yet, currently showing in theaters. Also, please make sure that you hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that notification bell to stay up to date on more new live-action Disney remakes that I'm reviewing just like this. So Lilo and Stitch stars Maya Kealoha, Billy Magnuson, Chris Sanders, Zach Galifianakis, and more. A lonely Hawaiian girl and a fugitive alien bond over shared experiences and the concept of family. So the Disney live-action remakes has been something not only controversial for the past few years, but also has never really been my favorite type of, seems like, subgenre of Disney films nowadays. I feel like a lot of these cartoons that I grew up watching are classics, and to have a live-action remake where you're not going to really either change much or you kind of just mess up the whole story, it has been something that, well, I've kind of dreaded going to the movie theaters to watch. Now, don't get me wrong though, not all of them are awful. Some of them are okay, some of them are not bad, and others I wish I did not see, to be honest. But when it came to this live action remake, this is one that I feel like was near and dear to my heart. Aside from, of course, The Lion King, Aladdin, a Goofy movie, this one for sure was one that I grew up watching and I loved it. When I first saw it, I thought it was unique. I thought it was different. Used to think Stitch, although he was always creating havoc, I loved the dynamic between him and Lilo in the movie, all those things, right? So with this live action remake, I was a little hesitant that Disney was trying to remake it, especially after the last live action Disney remake was Snow White that I went to go watch. And although I wasn't very disappointed in it because it was never really one of my favorites growing up, I still see how a lot of people were outraged by it and kind of hated it. For me, I didn't really mind it. But with that being said, it kind of left a sour taste in my mouth. So with this, I wasn't too excited. But when I did see the trailer, I was relieved, to say the least. I thought, okay, this might actually be bearable and it might be pretty good. Though one thing I do have to bring up is that when it comes to these live action remakes of these classic cartoons, I don't have these high expectations. I don't go into it thinking, oh yes, this needs to be just as good as the original or even better. Because honestly, those cartoons to me are unbeatable and they bring a sense of nostalgia to my childhood that I kind of feel like can't really be messed with, although these live action remakes are trying to retell it in a different way. I honestly don't take it personal when some of these are just not that good. I just go and watch the classic cartoon. Keeping that all in mind, I am pretty relieved to say that this is one of the better live action Disney remakes we've seen in the past few years. In this live action version of Lilo and Stitch, the heart of the original story remains pretty much the same. A wild alien creature crash lands on Earth, forms an unexpected friendship with a lonely young girl named Lilo, and you guys, I know it seems like it's spoilers, but if you haven't seen this cartoon, I mean, go and watch it. Come on now, and then you can watch this review. But of course, Lilo is struggling to find friends and have friends, and with her parents not being there, she does befriend this alien creature named Stitch. The bond between Lilo and her older sister is one thing that I was a little hesitant about with this live action remake, but Nani is one of the most powerful parts of this film, and I'm glad they did get that right, as well as some other additions to the film. So I will get into some of my negatives later, but I do want to start off with the positives. There were some things in this film that I felt like were addressed that weren't addressed in the cartoon, especially when it came to Nani and Lilo losing their parents and how Nani's just trying to make a living and Lilo's just out doing who knows what, or just kind of there at the house. I've always wondered that in the cartoon, thinking, okay, so if she's at work, okay, Lilo's at home. I never knew anything else that went on, and I thought, wow, okay, well, that's kind of interesting. But one of the things that I feel like holds this film even more together is the performance of Lilo. And I feel like a lot of times she stole the show. And I'll get to more of that later when I start talking about the acting, but with this film, I feel like once the movie drifts too far from the main family drama, it loses some of its spark. The space characters Jumba and Pleakley, who are trying to catch Stitch, are more silly than necessary, to be honest. There are parts that feel a little awkward and don't blend well with the more grounded scenes. And one of the things that I do commend the director of this film doing is that you can kind of tell that there wasn't a big budget for this film. I read somewhere that it was close to about 100 million that they spent for this film, compared to some of the princess live action Disney remakes that were like 200 to 300 million. And you can kind of see some of that with some of the CGI characters. Jumba in particular, there's certain scenes where it was kind of noticeable that it was CGI. I mean, it wasn't really bad. And when it came to them landing on Earth, the director had this clever way of having them kind of disguise themselves as humans. And honestly, I don't blame the director for doing that. And that was one thing that didn't really bother me. Though one of the things I did question is not to have Kantu in this film, which I kind of felt like he was missing a little bit. I feel like there was another aspect with another actor that could have been done better as well. But some of these things, you can definitely feel that, and there is some clunkiness between some of those scenes with either the CGI or lack thereof, the polishing of that. Although Stitch looks really well done when it comes to the CGI, you kind of can see where a lot of that wasn't a big budget that they had. It's definitely noticeable, especially in the third act of the film. But to get to the casting again, it's mostly well done. Maya Kealoha as Lilo is a standout and kind of stole a lot of scenes. Maya brings just the right mix of playfulness and sadness to the role. And her scenes with Stitch, voiced again by Chris Sanders, who comes back to reprise the role of Stitch, it feels surprisingly real. Considering that Stitch is a computer-generated character, he looked pretty nice and he blended into certain backgrounds. Now, when it came to Jumbo and Pleakley, though, I see why a lot of that budget was used on the main actors disguising themselves as humans compared to seeing their alien forms on screen. Sydney Elizabeth Agudong also does a great job as Nani, showing both strength and vulnerability as she tries to care for her sister while dealing with her own personal life. And speaking of some things in her personal life, there was an addition with Nani that they added to this film that I kind of wasn't expecting, and I was actually okay with. Especially towards the end, as things start to play out, I started to see why they put this in the film, and I enjoyed that part. When it comes to Zach Galifianakis, who plays Jumba in the film, aka the alien scientist, he puts effort into the role, and I think the guy's funny with a lot of his roles, but the voice doesn't seem to really match the character's personality. Billy Magnuson, however, brings energy to Pleakley, but the humor sometimes in the scenes often feels forced or unnecessary. Although I did feel like he fit that character of Pleakley just a little bit more. I definitely see why some people are complaining about those two, especially the scene where he dresses up as a girl in his alien form, how that was left out of the film, all those things. I know the director has publicly came out and said, hey, I tried, but Disney did not let me. Aside from that drama, though, that didn't really bother me too much. I feel like though Zach Galifianakis playing Jumba was probably one of my bigger issues, along with Courtney B. Vance, who plays Cobra Bubbles. Now, he's a good actor, but this version of the character feels watered down compared to the intimidating and mysterious version from the animated film. There's a part of me that feels like they should have just recasted Ving Rhames to play that character. Now, one of the other additions I will say too is Amy Hill as the neighbor Tutu. At first, I didn't know how to feel about this addition until the very end of the movie, when everything comes together and makes sense for her character to be in this movie. I did like seeing her in this role though, because I remember seeing her in 50 First Dates. She always reminds me of that character in there. She brings a warmth and wisdom to this character, and I felt like she was one of the best new additions when it came to this, as well as the love interest to Nani, who is David. He also brings a little bit more to that character as well. Now, this remake stays close to the original plot, but brings in some fresh changes. Although some are good and some are kind of and I could have done without, it still gives some depth to some of the story. Now, visually, the film is colorful and includes cool sci-fi moments like a portal shooting alien gun. Those are probably some of my favorite scenes, along with the ones with Lilo and Stitch. Stitch, of course. But here are my final thoughts, you guys. The version of Lilo and Stitch doesn't completely break new ground, but it has plenty of heart. While not every choice works, the strong family bond, solid performances by the leads, and sweet messages about Ohana, aka family, carry it through. It doesn't quite reach the emotional magic of the original, but it still has some charm, some laughs, and a few touching moments. With all that being said, I'm gonna give Lilo and Stitch 3.5 flames out of 5 and a pretty fire film rating.
It's nice.
I still feel like this is worth the watch if you love the original and you want to see some of the newer additions, all those things. I will say this is one of the stronger live action remakes that I've seen. This heartfelt movie though respects the original enough to give it a few more layers. It's not perfect and some side characters don't quite work in this live action, but the core of the story, aka two sisters and a wild alien trying to build a family, still shines. It's a pretty good, emotional, and enjoyable watch. Alright guys, so have you seen this live action film yet, or are you looking forward to seeing it? Let me know in the comments below. Last thing before I do go, you guys, please make sure to hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that notification bell to stay up to date. My name's Jacey, and until next time, I'm out.